And here we go. Welcome to Season 2 of the Huddle. I'm Ed Tait from BlueBombers.com. Join us every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on the Blue Bombers YouTube channel. Season 2 of the Huddle, episode 27 overall. We're really proud of this. And as you can see, fancy schmancy new set here. Courtesy Rianne Marcoux took some stuff from my office that I have to come in here for my reference material, but she did an awesome job. And we're really excited about Season 2, and I'm really, really pleased to be joined by the lovely and talented Derek Taylor, CJOB, the voice of the Bombers in CJOB, the all-time leader on appearances on the Huddle. We got to get you the five-time...
The five-timers jacket.
Five-time jacket, just like Saturday Night Live. Okay, so this is... we're calling this our draft special because tomorrow is the CFL draft at 5 p.m. Winnipeg time.
Which is a change from last year, right?
I think it's to go again. They want to make sure they're not going up against the hockey game.
Yeah, it caught me off guard for a while because I'd been telling folks, it's 8 Eastern, 7 Winnipeg time because that's what it's been for as long as I can remember.
Right.
5 o'clock Winnipeg time.
5 o'clock, and the global draft goes in the morning. 2 rounds of the global draft, 7 rounds of the CFL draft, I believe. 8 rounds. And the Bombers have their first pick is 6th overall. We're going to get into that, and we're going to break down what the Canadian talent looks like on this team right now, where they might go in the draft with all their picks, and a bonus pick at the end of the second round for having the most national snaps in the league last year. So really pleased to be joined by Derek because this guy really knows his stuff, and we both are a bit of draft geeks, I would say. We were both at the Combine in Regina last month, March, to check out some of the talent. It's a fun time of year because we know that what's coming soon is training camp. Next Wednesday is rookies. May 11th, I believe, is the first day of main camp with all the players on the field. So we're really geeked up about this time of year and the draft in particular. So as we normally do, we always like to open up with the Coors Light Chill Chat where we get to know our guest a little bit more. But since you've been on 3-4 times already, DT, we're gonna switch it up a little bit. We're not gonna ask you about whether a hot dog is a sandwich and some of the stuff we did.
Hot dog
is
absolutely a sandwich. Amazing.
Yeah, I can't believe you still stick with that.
Went to a Valor game. I didn't know there were $2 hot dogs at the Valor game. I would have had like 10.
Yeah, you went with a full stomach. Yeah, okay. So anyway, the Coors Light Chill Chat is brought to you by Coors Light, the official beer of the Blue Bombers. And now
there's regular cold. And then there's the mountains are blue cold. Mountain cold refreshment. Coors Light, the chill choice.
Okay, so we're going to keep the chill chat a little bit, the Coors Light Chill Chat a little bit shorter because we want to get into the draft stuff. But DT, I got to ask you because Stuart Johnson was introduced as the CFL's new commissioner last week. Mm-hmm. You used to work at TSN. You know the guy.
Stu, yeah.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about the new boss of the CFL.
Yeah, so Stu was the president when I was there, and then his role has kind of evolved in the 6 years since I've been gone, but he was kind of in charge of everybody. He was my boss's boss back in the day. So there's not a ton of, from the folks working on SportsCenter up to the president, but every time I did, if I had a problem and it needed, someone up that high to solve it, all over it, which... when you're an employee in a company, sometimes your direct boss forgets about you, much less that person's boss, right? So that Stu was responsive to what I needed in time. So this is important. I need to take care of this for one of my guys. I will always respect him for that. And in the years since, you get to know him a little better, just running around at Grey Cups because frankly, the Bombers keep going to Grey Cups, so I keep running the chances to talk to Stu. So super excited for that. And for him, right, a chance to kind of be in the mix of sports and something that's so important to this Canadian sports landscape. Super excited for it. He's a smart guy. He's only in his early 50s, so he's got plenty of vim and vigor left in him. So yeah, I'm excited for what he has, and he knows the broadcast side of this, and he's thought a ton about broadcasting and what the future of that will be. Just in the job he'd been doing for so long, can only help. Bringing that to the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, we're at a real critical point in that with the TSN contract coming up, and I'm not sure if it's next year or the year after, and just where television and broadcast rates are going, it's a really interesting time. So a guy with that kind of background could be really critical for the league. Okay, so I watched his press conference last week, and he was pretty reserved. You know, I think it was sort of the under promise, over deliver approach, right? I don't want to say too much and get burned on it down the road. But if you were going to be commissioner, or if you could get into his ear a little bit, DT, and what would you say? Hey, I want to. We need to talk about this, or I want to change this. Oh, you've got a list.
I wrote down 5. 2 of them, no one will care. The third one, get rid of the rouge on field goals. It's not going to get any traction. I wouldn't waste my time with that. But the rouge on field goal misses has to go. Here's 2, and feel free to go wherever you want. 1, no one will ever call it Sam linebacker again. Reddick Cramdy is a defensive back. Stop saying he's a linebacker. No one should ever say Sam linebacker again. It's a defensive back. It's the dime. Done. Over. These guys are 5'10" and 190 pounds. They're not linebackers. You're
a little fired up over that.
Yeah, that one troubles me no end. The one for me though would be when we're doing the playoffs. Can some league just forget about West and East? Just give me 1 to 6. 1 and 2 get a bye. If you want the division winners to be 1 and 2, Jimmy Crack Corn, I don't care. But give me 1 to 6 in the playoffs. 6 plays 3, 5 plays 4. The winner plays 1 and 2. Boom, let's go. If the 2 best teams are in one division, why should they not play in the Grey Cup? Mm-hmm. Like, we're holding on to these rivalries, and I get it. But then the post-COVID year, they kind of beat us over the head with Toronto versus Hamilton. Played 4 times that season, I think, in 14 games, and then they might meet in the playoffs. And just give me 1 to 6 in the playoffs.
It would make for way more interesting playoff matchups in the first round, especially. And you know, as a Bomber, a lot of Bomber fans will tell you when they were changing the divisions all the time, that East versus West thing got all blurred anyway. Because for years Winnipeg was in the East, went to the Grey Cup in 90, 92, 93 is in the East, 2001 is the East, and back and forth. And so, when you get those Winnipeg versus Calgary Grey Cups, I mean, it's really not a East versus West Grey Cup anyway. So I'm a traditionalist. I usually would put my flag in the ground on that, but I'm with you on that. I like the idea of, as you say, maybe first in the East and West get that first round bye, whether you're 9-9 and finish first or not. Yeah. But then the rest, you rank 3 to 6, and then you have it out from there. It's pretty compelling.
Yeah, because we're maybe transitioning to there's more power in the East last year than there had been in a few years. But like, if I could have sold you 2015, 2016, oh hey, you're going to get Michael Riley's Edmonton Elks and you're going to get Bo Levi Mitchell's Calgary Stampeders meeting in the Grey Cup and not the Western Final. Mm-hmm. I would love it. I would love it if the best game was the Grey Cup and not necessarily
the division final.
The division final.
Right.
And for some years it's been that. And who knows where this year goes, but maybe Toronto holds on to its status, and Montreal, we're solved at quarterback. And if there's a 15-3 team and a 14-4 team, mm-hmm. why should they not meet in the final?
Right. Okay. Let's go. What else on your list there, buddy? You said you had more.
I did. Well, I gave you them all. The Sam linebacker thing that drives me.
I thought you said you had 5.
Well, I do. One, the CFL needs its API back for nerds like me to get a better hold of its data. And this will never happen. I would love some leagues give access to a pool reporter for the officials.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I would love that, because there are so many times we leave a game going, both Toronto-Winnipeg games last year, I left that game going, how did you not know that was a Terry Wilson touchdown? Because it very clearly was in the game here. And how does Ryan, in the game in Toronto, how does Ryan Dinwiddie not get penalized for calling a timeout he doesn't have late in the game? Yep. Because that lost the Bombers the game.
Yeah. Well, we saw it happened in the NBA yesterday. The pool reporter asked the official about what happened at the end of a Knicks game. Yeah. And they said, we messed up. But at least there was accountability in the moment, and not people talking about it for a week. I like that.
Which I'd be big in favor of that. The league, for very significant reasons, would not, because now you're subjecting your men and women officials to have to answer these questions that might be uncomfortable, and you can kind of, at the moment, you can slide that stuff under the radar. But if you look at refereeing decisions in the league last year, Hamilton Tiger Cats probably made the playoffs if they all got adjudicated correctly. Well, Hamilton fans probably be mad about that. But then again, you're going, okay, well, here, Justin McInnes, by the way, answer some questions from Dan Ralph of CP, and it might not put the best look on the officials who are they're just trying to do their best.
Right. Okay, I got one before. I wasn't even going to jump in, but you got me fired up too. I would love it if the league would dump this thing that they started last year, all West CFL, all East CFL for the All-Star players, and then all CFL. Let's just get back to East Division All-Star, West Division All-Star, CFL All-Star. This all
the naming
West,
convention's confusing.
The naming is bad. Just East All-Star, West All-Star, CFL All-Star. They started doing all West All-Star, all CFL. It's confusing to me even saying it right now, let alone writing it. It doesn't make any sense. Let's get back to
Can I sell you on how about we just get rid of divisions for that too? Because there have been years.
Yeah, sure.
There have been years where I was filling out an East ballot and I went, well, this guy is not an all-star at the cover linebacker position, but he's the only guy who was healthy.
And there's only 4 teams to pick from.
right? Exactly. He started 6 games and then he was a safety for the other 12. So what are we?
I could buy that.
It's
okay.
There are some positions where it gets super thin. The guard positions in the West last year, like it gets super thin because of injuries and stuff. And maybe if I could kick in an East guy, I would like something. The balloting, there'd be some balloting in the CFL that could change too.
Okay, so we're on.
Stu, if you're listening.
Yes, Stu, if you're listening. All right. So the reason we're doing the show is to talk about the draft. We've gone on our little tangent here with the ranting here, but I like ranting. So
I didn't even get to tell you what they did with my winter vacation about watching WKRP on my.
Is that what you did?
WKRP home repairs, and I got my first ever colonoscopy. It was a time, man.
I see. This is why we move on now. I don't want to be talking about that. Thank you, DT, for weighing in. Okay. The point of this, again, is the Bombers at the draft. Tomorrow, the CFL draft and the global draft. You don't go to 5 straight Grey Cups without having some decent Canadian talent, right? And the best player in this league, Brady Oliveira, was the most outstanding player and the most outstanding Canadian 2 years in a row, and he's a Bomber draft pick. So this team has got it right consistently. I was watching a thing that Dwayne Ford from TSN did earlier with Marshall Ferguson previewing the draft tomorrow, and then one of the things he said that stood out to me was that the Bombers have gone to 5 straight Grey Cups because they're not afraid to draft guys and play them at positions that we haven't thought about as Canadians for the longest time. It's always been you got to play 3 Canadians on your offensive line, maybe 4 or 5 if you can. Bombers use a Canadian tailback. The only team in the league that uses a Canadian at dime.
Thank you.
And Reddick Cramdy. And had a Canadian cornerback in Terrell Ford. So it's the one thing that this team has got right for a long time. Not everybody's going to hit every pick, but if you look at last year's draft class for the Bombers, Kevin Sklarcius, Gabe Wallace, Michael Chris Ike, Kyle Sampson all played games. Owen Hubert played games.
Started a couple, yeah.
Ian LaRue is here in camp coming up as a long snapper. A.K. Gazama from the Bisons is going to be here. Those are all draft picks from last year, so they got it right. We've got lots of good stuff. As I say in my little notes here, modesty does not prevent me from saying check out some of our pre-draft coverage on bluebombers.com.
All 8 positional previews as well. You've done a lot of content on that. It's awesome.
But let's talk about some of the hits the team took in the offseason. And the ones that I think of right away are Terrell Ford, who I just mentioned.
Yep.
Gets a ton of money to go join his brother in Edmonton. We're talking about a CFL All-Star corner. Liam Dobson, West Division All-Star, not all CFL West, whatever they call it, has left for Hamilton. He got a good payday too. So that's 2 Canadian starters right there. And then Drew Wolotarski was released because they believe in Kevin Sklarcius. So
Johnny Augustine to Hamilton
but there's
as well.
3 starters right there, 3 Canadian starters gone. Let's just talk about that, the impact of those 3 guys leaving, first of all.
Yeah, Tyrell Ford is obviously enormous, right? I mean, regardless of passport, he was awesome at that field side cornerback spot working next to Evan Holmes. So that's a hit. The Bombers, though, when you talk to Kyle Walters, feel that cornerback, you can find an American player to play cornerback. So positionally, how much will it matter? Well, if the guy they bring up covers like Terrell Bonds covers in man coverage, they'll be okay. And not to say anything about Tyrell Ford, awesome. It's a loss, but I think they believe they can certainly find guys. Liam Dobson, I think Liam Dobson can be replaced with frankly with guys they've got on the roster now. Much less do they even have to draft somebody. I think Gabe Wallace has played the left side in his college career. He's been a right-sided player since he's come to the Bombers. But to me, Gabe could play. You have Americans that could play that guard spot. I'm curious. I'd be curious to find out why Hamilton paid him $200,000+ a year just from just going through games in the last little bit. Go, okay. I don't. I wouldn't do it, but there must be something else. And Drew Wolotarski. I wanted Wally back so bad.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Wally was perfect at 2nd and 9. Here, I'll get you 10. And I'll catch you anything. And, oh, they're going to break my ribs? Well, I'll come back. Oh, they're going to break him again? Well, I'm going to come back on the field in that game. And eventually it was too overwhelming. He was exactly what I want as a football player. He wasn't Kenny Lawler's skills, but he's exactly what I want as a football player. So that one hurt to see him go. Kevin's Clarcius is really good, though. And Clarcius to me needs snaps, so
that's just it.
I guess that's where it comes from.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Wally's one of my favorite guys, and he was such a great for us in the media, great in the locker room, very very popular. But Kevin's Clarcius, when he got on the field, you could just see every week a little bit better, a little bit better. He's a big human being with massive hands. He needs to play.
He
right?
caught his first 16 targets. Don't listen to CFL and that stuff,
yeah.
But I was like, oh, if you keep doing this, I'm going to call you Mr. Perfect.
Right.
He enjoyed that. But yeah, lines up in line, tight end, and runs routes, blocks, protects, runs routes, catches across the middle. Yeah, needs more snaps.
Yep. So there's, I guess in a roundabout way, there's been some change to the Canadian content because as you mentioned, Johnny Augustine's gone to Hamilton. Owen Hubert, a draft pick from last year.
The Bombers let him go at the end of the season, right, by leaving him on PR.
But he's gone too.
Johnny Augustine was on all the special teams. He was that second returner back, right, on kickoff to help out whoever was the other returner. So that's going to need some help.
And Bailey Feltmate, a fullback, linebacker, has retired. He's now a coach in Halifax.
Yep.
So there's been some changes. Let's say, Josh, have you got that graphic? Let's throw up the graphic of what the Bombers do have now at Canadian, because as we're rattling off all these names, we can start looking at what they have.
Defensive tackle depth for days.
It's
on
unbelievable.
The Canadians, yeah.
So I think when we look at the defensive tackle side, you've got Jake Thomas, a healthy Cam Lawson coming back. You've got
Tanner Schmeckel,
who came on last year, I thought played really well.
Goal line tight end Tanner Schmeckel as well.
Goal line tight end. Kyle Sampson, his first game is the Grey Cup. He was on the practice roster all year. Colin Cornelson, a draft pick from a couple years ago, a U of M guy, is there too. So they're stacked at defensive tackle.
Brock Gowanlock is a defensive end. But
I like that
addition. Again, me too. I'm with you 100%. Former Manitoba Bison. Canadian on the defensive line. Okay, well, we need some. They had games where they would go in with two defensive ends. Like, okay, well, now it's here's a guy who can get James Vaughter's 3 snaps off, whatever you want to do. Man,
he was banged up last year, but a guy that like you said, in spot snaps during his days in Montreal, you'd say, oh yeah, Brock Gowanlock, because he did something out there.
Grey Cup champion.
Yeah, so I like that addition. He was one of those guys in free agency. There's a couple other too. While we're rattling off names, Josh Haggerty, really good special teams player who was in Edmonton and Toronto, was a Toronto draft pick, defensive back. I like Enoch McConzo. He blew out his Achilles last year in Hamilton, just before Hamilton's training camp. But there's a former first-round draft pick by Edmonton.
Was he 4th overall? Yeah. That's an interesting one to play. He could play behind Reddick Cramdy.
Right.
Is he maybe a safety as well? Because they're deep in Canadian defensive backs.
They still have Jake Kelly coming back.
Former second rounder.
Yeah, he was hurt last year at the end of the year, so we'll see what his status is coming to camp.
Nick Hallett's in the mix as well. Nick was the 8th defensive back in some games as well. Yeah,
good special teams player.
Yep.
Had that touchdown in the Labor Day game, right? Mario Alford botches that kickoff. Yeah, I don't want this. Here, you take it, Nick. Touchdown. And that's just on defense, right? We might be forgetting.
Cadwallader and Gauthier,
linebacker.
Of course,
yeah.
So linebacker depth isn't great among Canadians.
Not thick there, because Max Charbonneau, who was recently released, I think had an injury issue too. And then you look on the offensive side of the ball. Can't forget Nick Dembski, back-to-back 1,000 years. We've mentioned Kevin's Clarcius. No Johnny Augustine anymore. Michael Chris Ike.
Yeah, MCI.
Yeah, I like him. Tui. And Gabe along the offensive line for depth with Chris Kolinkowski and Pat Neufeld.
Former Bison Gavin Cobb in his receiver.
Gavin Cobb is an interesting one,
has done some returning, not a not a ton,
Yep.
but has done some returning. You mentioned A.K. Kasama, again,
AK,
former Bison,
yep.
looking to crack a roster. But Gavin Cobb as a guy who has done some returning, and you look at how they've changed their returning possibilities this year between Logan Mitchell and even maybe a little Gavin Cobb to get you out of there.
And you've got Mike Benson, who's been long snapping forever, but now Ian LaRue, a draft pick that they really like too, is there. So it's an interesting collection of Canadians. Still,
they're not crying for anything. It doesn't. It appears they're not crying out for anything. I look at this and I go, okay, well, the draft is tomorrow. What do I want the Bombers to get? Okay, I want some skill position players on offense, because at the moment, like the running back room is Brady Oliveira, Peyton Logan, and Michael Chris Ike. Is MCI a fullback? Could he get you out of game at running back? I don't know the answer to that. We didn't see him carry the ball last year. Peyton Logan can run the football, but Brady's the horse. Right. I would love somebody else in there to give you some options. Your Canadian receivers are Dembski and Clercius with Gavin Cobb. I would like somebody else in there in the mix. And at least on the offensive side, they're not in a terrible spot with offensive line, but I would like to, you mentioned Kyle Walters talks about refreshing and keeping it up. They need to refresh, right? Because what's Patty Neufeld's future after this year? He's excited to play again this year, but who knows what happens after the Grey Cup and after Stanley Bryant has to retire at some point in the next 10 years. So does that then set off the dominoes of retirements along the line? How do you replace Chris Kolinkowski in the future? Because he's a guy who's sneakily 33 years old, just turned 33, I believe. So you go, okay, Tui Ellie's contract is up after this year. What's Tui's future? He doesn't play a lot. He's the sixth offensive lineman sometimes, or probably all the time is the better way to say that. So offensive line could use some refreshing along the way, which these are natural points you get to when you've been to 5 straight Grey Cups, but there are things that are going to have to happen. So, those.
Well, that's the interesting thing when we start to debate this, because we've already touched on Terrell Ford leaving. You don't start we need to find a Canadian to play cornerback. No. And it's the same thing now when you talk about Liam Dobson leaving and the left guard spot. You don't necessarily have to start a Canadian there. And that's one of the things.
What?
Yeah, that's one
Is
of the
that
things.
not a rule?
It's a bit of a mystery now coming into this draft for the Bombers, because one of their real strengths, and it's the reason they've got that extra draft pick at the end of the second round, it's awarded to 2 teams that have the highest Canadian snap total, is because they've almost every week started 8 Canadians, sometimes 9 Canadians. So the rule is you only have to start 7. And if the Bombers were to play a game that mattered tomorrow, their 7 starting Canadians you could get away with Neufeld, Kolinkowski, Dembski, Clercius, Brady, Jake or Cam at defensive tackle, and Retta Cramdy at the dime. And there's your 7 starters right there.
Yeah,
so
then you pick your fake Canadian, right?
How's it going?
All right. A little backlight action. All right,
go.
Phil. Got
We
some
needed
Phil
that
light.
light.
Plus, you get your fake Canadian, right? You have to have a designated nationalized.
Right. That's another
whatever.
part.
Or you're nationalized American, not your designated nationalized American.
So
it's all confusing. But
to your point, there's a way for them to get snaps.
easily they're at 7. They could find a way to 8 if you go Canadian at left guard as well.
So it's interesting going into this draft, because the natural assumption for a lot of people to make is that they'll take an offensive lineman early, because it's what teams do in this league, and they have done for a long time, because you need to find someone to replace Liam Dobson.
Yep.
But there were times last year and when we saw Kendall Randolph play tackle and guard. He's a guy that needs to play. They really like Mika Vanterpool, who was here all of last year, played 1 game, another American. So there's a real possibility.
And he's an interior guy.
Yeah, interior guy, a guard. So there's a real possibility that this team could go with 3 Americans this year, and that might impact how they, it will impact how they approach the draft. You were in Regina when I was in Regina, and we sat at the back and watched the one-on-ones with the offensive linemen and defensive linemen.
Yeah.
Not all the top
so
prospects
many guys
were
there,
including offensive linemen. But the consensus after that weekend was that this isn't going to be a great deep draft for offensive linemen.
Yeah.
So that's another factor to pull into play in this.
Which when you look at the Bombers roster overall, we go, okay, well, loaded that defensive tackle, but you could sway me if there's somebody available. Okay, good mix of defensive backs that are Canadians, needs here. If there's an offensive lineman at 6, if Anderson from Western or 410 from the States are available at 6, okay, yeah. I'm in on that. Honest to goodness, just having seen last season, Tiger Shanks is a kid from UNLV, right tackle in American school. If you think he could play right tackle up here, done. Done. Because Eric Lofton is to me, Eric Lofton is not as firmly in his job as the other 3 guys that are available on that offensive line. So if you thought a Canadian could take that, more and more, 3 other teams use a Canadian at tackle this coming season, it looks like. So it's not becoming a radical idea anymore.
Yeah. It's the Bombers have the 2 picks in the second round and 6th overall. So it will be interesting to see where they go. I'm not so sure that it's O-line early. To your point, it could be.
If
a star guy or a prospect that you really have rated high is still sitting there.
Drafts are so funny because you look at, well, if it's thin on offensive line, I better get an offensive lineman. But then sometimes the gap is not nearly what we think it is, right? I was going through some old drafts, and it was just receivers in a draft, was it 3 years ago? And it was Jalen Philpott, and it was Samuel Emilus, and then it was Tyson Philpott. And I went, well, yeah, but if you drafted him now, you just completely flip it. It would be Tyson, Emilus, and Jalen in that order. Tyson's crushing it. Samuel Emilus is a stud in Regina, and Jalen Philpott's having some injury troubles. And you go, man, drafts are so fickle that, well, this guy's better than this guy, but it just doesn't turn out that way at all.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that and bring up some of the names that are going to be shouted out tomorrow, because as to your point, this draft is like no other, right? Because the best Canadians are probably not going to play in the CFL. They've been drafted in the NFL, and so that there's no other league in the world that has a draft like that where the players available to you might not get picked until late in the draft, if at all.
This is the hardest draft I think of any. Way harder than the NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball. Maybe you're trying to predict what 18-year-olds are going to be at 22.
But they also have 9 trillion rounds.
Yeah, but what do you do? Do you take a guy early? I was going through old drafts, and Jesse Luketa, Ottawa took him, linebacker, Penn State, in the second round. It would look like one of those extra picks for using a bunch of Canadians. That guy's never coming. So a second round pick, 20th overall, is out the door. Carter O'Donnell was a third-round pick of Montreal in 2020. Carter O'Donnell's not. He was a stud at University of Alberta.
Yep.
He's not coming.
Right.
He's not coming to now play for Edmonton. There's just no way. Chuba Hubbard. You think Chuba Hubbard's ever played in a CFL when he's ripping it for the Carolina Panthers? Well, goodbye to pick 43, right? So you have to be. That's why to me it's so hard. You have to know what these guys are planning to do. And you have to believe that what you're being told is the truth when their agents have different goals than maybe Kyle Walters does as GM.
Right.
Hard.
Let's get into some of the names that are going to be shouted out tomorrow. But
I'm going to cut you off real quick, Ed. Sorry. I'm just going to jump in here and say thank you to Winnipeg Sports Talk. They send all of their viewers our way. So we got 110 people hanging out listening to you guys chop it up.
Right on.
One quick question. People are wondering where they can watch the draft.
Okay, the first 2 rounds, this is... I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. The first 2 rounds are on TSN. Normally, rounds 3 to 8 are on tsn.ca or the CFL website. I'm hearing it's on TSN Plus. The reason I was checking with the league on this is that I don't have TSN Plus, and I want to watch rounds 3 to 8. So I'm hoping we can get some clarification from the league on that. It's usually on tsn.ca or cfl.ca. That's what I'm hoping too, because I'm already signed up with enough subscription things. I don't need to sign up with something else. And I don't mean that as a shot at TSN Plus, but I wish I could tell people 100% I knew, but I'm still trying to find out.
Right, okay. Yeah. Sounds good. But yeah, just wanted to say, interrupt you quick to thank them for sending their lovely folks to us. And we got a bunch of people hanging out listening to you guys chop it up.
CJOB Sports Show I'll be on with Christian O'Mell.
There you go.
tomorrow from 6:30 to 7:30 talking about the draft. The draft again starts at 5, so we'll get a chance to walk through some of the guys and where'd they go? Is it Jackson Finley? What's Jackson Finley's deal? Where are they going to go? Is it Curtis Rourke? What about Curtis Rourke?
Yeah, well, we'll bring some of these names up in a sec.
And on that note as well, what time for everyone? Because we just got a ton of people.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock Winnipeg time.
5 o'clock
Okay,
Winnipeg
5
time. The
o'clock
global
Winnipeg time.
draft is only 2 rounds, and it goes at 10, and it just goes by so fast, and I'm not sure that people...
It's not broadcast anywhere.
No,
either.
and it's on there. There's a global tracker on the CFL website that you'll just see the picks. The same with the draft tracker. If you just want to follow along while you're doing something else in the background, you'll see the picks come up on their board, and they get refreshed all the time. But if you want to see the TSN analysis, Dwayne Ford, we both appreciate so much, and for his work on this, Marshall Ferguson, all those guys, they were at the Paul Appolice, Farhan, they were all at the Combine in Regina, and so they do their homework on this, and that's what I want to see. I want to see, the same way I watch the NFL draft, I want to see the analysis of all the picks right to the very end. So
you don't want the hot Aussie punter action at 10 a.m. in the global draft?
Well, yeah, sure.
Michael Sleep Dalton, let me Google him up and see what's happening. All right.
Well, that's how the Bombers got Jamison Sheehan, right?
Who was it? Tom, there was another one they drafted.
Oh, yeah, he came up here for a day.
That's right, and it was around the strike,
Yeah,
right?
and then he went back.
And now he covers Real Salt Lake in Major League Soccer or something like that. Yeah.
That's right. He was a sportscaster.
All that to say, just making sure everyone's going to stick around. We're doing
5
the jersey
o'clock.
giveaway later. We got the draft tomorrow. They got lots of stuff to break down still, so don't go anywhere. We got lots of show left here.
Ooh, that jersey might tip who's the first-round pick. Ooh.
That's not bad.
Making that up entirely.
I should also, Josh, help me out on this part. The Duron Equipment is still a sponsor of the Huddle. We don't have a commercial for them anymore, but we're
working on that.
together.
We're shooting a new commercial for them this year. It's
Right.
not quite ready to go yet. We've had a pretty busy offseason with the Grey Cup being in Winnipeg this year.
Yep.
But we're working on getting a new commercial done for them. But yes, Duron Equipment is still supporting the show.
Love it.
Shout out to them.
And Coors Light, who still sponsors the Chill Chat. So
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Okay, so I'm looking at this is the goofy part of this draft. So the CFL Scouting Bureau today sent out their 2025 spring edition, the final rankings of the prospects heading into this draft. And so it's interesting because Alec Iomaner from Stanford, the receiver, was taken by Tennessee in the draft.
In the fourth round, so he's staying.
He's staying. Curtis Rourke, drafted by San Francisco in the 7th round. We can chop this one up a little bit, the quarterback. Then there's a couple of guys. Paris Shand, a defensive lineman from Louisiana State, has
signed a deal.
Undrafted free agent deal with Buffalo. So has Hayden Harris, a defensive lineman from Montana. Those guys, those 4 guys, are kind of risky picks now for CFL teams because you might not see them. When you sign it as an undrafted free agent, you're usually getting some upfront money, and the more teams invest in you down south, the less likely you are to see them. So there's a bunch of other guys that weren't drafted in the NFL draft that are getting NFL looks still. So Connor Shea, the linebacker from Wyoming, who a lot of people say will be first overall to Calgary, he's been invited to the New York Jets training camp, rookie camp.
Rookie camp. Big difference, yeah.
Yeah, Damian Alford, a wide receiver from Utah, is going to Kansas City's rookie camp. Taylor Elgersma, another Canadian quarterback who we talked about earlier, Wilfred Laurier, has been offered a number of rookie camp invites, and there's a guy that's his star is really shining right now. Jeremiah Ojo, a defensive lineman from Montreal, New York Giants rookie camp. Eric Anderson, O-lineman from Western, New York Giants rookie camp. Devin Verisuk, the linebacker from Windsor, who tested through the roof, Indianapolis rookie camp. So the guys that get rookie camp invites, a lot of times they're just going there for the experience. They get a T-shirt, they get the workout, they get eyeballs on them from the NFL. But then they usually show up to CFL camp, sometimes a week late, which doesn't help them sometimes. But they're still prospects in this draft. But the first 4 I mentioned, the receiver from Stanford, Curtis Rourke, Paris Shand, and Hayden Harris, they're going to be kind of risky picks a little bit for the CFL.
High in the draft, yeah. You just Iomaner, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't, because you're a 4th round pick
good.
of a team that just drafted a quarterback first overall.
Yep. And watching the
He's
NFL
good.
draft on the weekend,
He's good. There's no point.
they reminded when he was taken in the fourth round by Tennessee. He's the one guy that gave Travis Hunter a lot of trouble. The Heisman Trophy winner, the guy that goes second overall. He had massive day against Colorado. So this guy can play. And so as much as we all cheer for Canadians, I do not think we'll see him up here in Canada wearing a CFL jersey.
Which makes it so tricky. And then, you go into that list. Connor Shea is gone in the first 2 picks.
Right.
Like Calgary and Hamilton are both set to use a Canadian linebacker already. I've never seen Connor Shea play. I'm just prefacing with that. But those 2 teams already have the infrastructure to play a Canadian linebacker.
Yep.
You're taking a Canadian linebacker.
Well, and then it's interesting because every draft class has its strengths and weaknesses, and one of the real strengths of this year's class is D-line and defensive back. And, I just mentioned Shand and Harris getting undrafted free agent offers or contracts. They're D linemen. I'm looking at the rest of the list. Darian Newell from Queens, he's on the list as D-line. Isaiah Bagna from BYU is a D lineman. Jeremiah Ojo I mentioned. But the Bombers, as we said earlier, with adding Brock Gowanlock and the stacked at defensive tackle, I'm not sure that's an area that they look at.
Yeah, I don't think if there's a guy that happened to be there, I look at the Bombers and go, you know what? They're in a position where just take the best player.
Right.
Just take the best player. There's not, to me, a pressing need that they absolutely, positively, 100% have to fill through this draft. So just take the best player.
Yep.
Last year they loved Kevin Sklercius. Hey, we can make a trade and still get him? Cool. Boom.
Right.
Done. Let's go. And then you saw the benefits of having so many draft picks last year. 4 in the second round. Well, here's 3 guys who contributed to a run to the Grey Cup game. And a 4th guy who, as you mentioned, got his first start in the Grey Cup game.
Yep.
And coaches like a lot for the future. You go, okay, just take the best player. Especially, honest to goodness, I don't have any idea what Jason Hogan will be as the offensive coordinator, but it's only 1 season. I'm pretty confident that you could take any defensive player and Jordan Younger will know exactly where to put that Jackson Finley, the defensive back from Western, I feel like he would know exactly what to do with that guy within the span of training camp, and okay, boom, done. Yep. Oh, it's a defensive lineman. It's a defensive end. We already have Willie and James Vonders, and we're set. You know what we're going to do? We're going to throw some 3 defensive end packages out there. Oh, and by the way, Gowanlock's the deep-lying safety for some reason that only I know and no one else will be able to figure out, and it's going to be awesome. I feel like they're incredibly flexible.
Yeah.
And just whoever you think is the best football player, just go. I would love it if that's a skill position offensive player, but I think Bombers are at the moment in a nice spot for this draft.
Well, it's interesting because I just said, I'm contradicting myself, but I said I don't see them taking a D lineman. But if one of these guys they have ranked 3rd overall and then you're picking 6th, and you said to your point about take the best player available, then if you're really go get them and worry about the rest down the road.
Well, now you make me want to pull it up because I'm sure I could go back and find you a snap where they put 4 defensive tackles on the field. I'm sure I could find you one where Jordan Younger went, here's 4 defensive tackles. Figure out what we're doing with this.
Yeah, it's again a fascinating draft because the best players don't always end up here. You're trying to fill positional needs. When it comes to the Bombers, to your point, it's there's no clear-cut spot that's jumping out. This is where they're going to go with that pick or the first couple of picks.
Yeah.
To your point earlier, I think they are a little thin at Canadian linebacker right now.
Yeah, there's just 2 left, right?
Tanner Kidwalder and Shane Gauthier. That might be an area that they look
100%,
at.
100%, yeah. If there's a linebacker, that guy should be on the roster.
Noah Hallett's not back. Nick's back. Jake Kelly's coming off an injury, so maybe defensive back with Terrell Ford gone too is another area you target.
But then you still have Cramdy and Enoch Wakonzo, who's coming off an injury you mentioned.
As the dime or maybe, but again with Jordan's versatility and the way he moves people around, maybe you want more of a halfback safety type that you can throw back there too.
And when we asked Kyle about that, he kind of. This stood out to me. He kind of talked about those 4 guys. There's 2 corners and then the 4 other guys in the back 6. He talked about those guys all being kind of one unit, and they have a special they have an advanced set of skills, for lack of better description. Kyle could obviously describe it much better, but these guys need to know how it all kind of works together. And I suspect you could see Michael Griffin play the dime and the safety. He's an American, but you could see this guy play here and there. Dietrich Nichols can be the half, and he can also be the safety. I feel like that I feel like if Rhett Cramdy started the game at safety, would you do more than go, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I feel like we would all be like, yep, no, I get it. Because Cramdy's really good at what he does at dime, so no reason why and my goodness, so many times he's so far back in what looks like a too high shell that I think it'd be just fine. So I think there probably some mobility within the players in there. If you're a Canadian, you could be here, you could be there.
Yeah, well, as you said earlier, Jordan Younger's defense looks a lot different than the traditional. We don't see necessarily two corners, two halfback safety.
It's bonkers.
There's all over the place. And so the idea of them having a safety, they've got a high-low, one guy high, one guy low, and dropping.
Why is
8,
Michael
9.
Griffin not on the screen? Well, he's super safety on this player, whatever they want to call it.
I think the idea of the old school idea of 5 people in the secondary is gonzo with Jordan Younger's defense. So again, that's what makes this interesting. You're picking 6th overall. Give me a name.
The two guys I would probably go to. 410 and Anderson, the offensive line. Yeah, if those guys are available, I'd probably go there. Again, to me, not the most pressing need, but I would presume, I just assume Connor Shea's gone in the first 2 picks for the reasons we talked about. Keelan White, the receiver from Montana State, I believe it is.
Yep.
If Montana, apologies to Montana State fans. If there's a receiver available at 6, absolutely. Because as we mentioned, they're not overwhelmed with depth at receiver anymore. Jeremy Murphy they let Jeremy Murphy go. Drew Wolotarski's off in Hamilton. So what was a position of a lot of depth last year is now 3 guys deep and guys who will be trying to get those spots. And they're not, they're not overwhelmed with Canadian skill players. So if Keelan White was somehow available. But, if there's an offensive lineman available at 6, with the reasons we talked about, Patty Neufeld is older.
Chris Golonkowski's
33. He was 33 years old, and you're looking to fill left guard. You had 5 Canadian offensive linemen on the roster last year. This year, at the moment, it would be 4. It'd be nice to have it be 5 because they can bring that guy along slowly with some 6th and 7th offensive line packages, or just bang. You're in there. Let's go.
Yep.
So, offensive lineman. I have no reason to fall in love with Tiger Shanks, but I would love to say that name, and he's a Canadian who might be able to play outside.
It's interesting. Okay. 2 people that really do a lot of homework on these drafts that I appreciate. John Hodge from 3 Down Nation had the Bombers taking Jackson Finley 6th overall. Marshall Ferguson, who works
Defensive
for TSN.
back,
Marshall Ferguson, who works for TSN and CFL.ca, also had the Bombers taking Jackson Finley 6th overall. So that's a name that a couple of draft experts see.
That's an interesting one because Cramdy is rock solid at dime.
So is McConzo.
And McConzo is brought in this year. Jake Kelly was the 2nd-round pick from a couple of years ago. You have Nick Hallett at depth in a spot that's American. Calgary's going to start a Canadian at halfback, it would look like. How does Jackson Finley pay off immediately would be my question. And I just haven't I would love to talk to those guys. I should give Marshall a call and be like, hey, how does Jackson Finley pay off immediately? Which you're hoping for, right? Because you get a guy at a low price.
Here's another little sidebar to this, then we'll chop this up for a sec. We're already at cruising along here in the show, so we can't go for too much longer. Because I have a short attention span, DT. I have to let you know. Anyway, both John Hodge and Marshall Ferguson had the Bombers taking quarterbacks in the 2nd round. Now, this is before the NFL draft when their mock drafts came out. Marshall had the Bombers taking Curtis Rourke, who's been drafted by San Francisco. And John Hodge had the Bombers drafting Taylor Elgersma from Wilfrid Laurier. Again, getting a lot of interest. He went to the Senior Bowl, lit it up. Tons of NFL teams are interested in him. He was not drafted. Is that something that you would consider and where? Because it's changing in this league. 2 of 9 teams now start a Canadian quarterback with Trey Ford and Edmonton. and Nathan Rourke in BC. It's not that unicorn that it once was, and we're seeing Canadian quarterbacks are getting better. If you're the Bombers, and Zach Collaros is 36 years old, entering the last year of his contract, do you take a Canadian quarterback, and how high would you?
I wouldn't take Curtis Rourke before the 8th round. Curtis Rourke gets drafted in the 7th round in the NFL to the San Francisco 49ers, who have a 7th round quarterback who is killing it and on the verge of
Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, on the verge of a 9-figure contract.
Brock Purdy.
I would not take Curtis Rourke before very, very, very late. I just don't think he's coming. And this got me to thinking earlier today. Hands up if you remember TJ Jones. Nobody's hands are up. Okay, perfect. TJ Jones was a Canadian receiver who was coming back to the NFL in 2020 to play for the Argos.
And he played in Detroit, was it?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
I had to Google a few times to get to the name I was trying to find because the story was such a weird thing at the time. Jones ended up not coming because at the time they could not pay him more than the league minimum because he was a Canadian player coming in his first contract. Here's your $65,000. Not in any way worth it to TJ Jones to come. But what it gave us was in 2022, the TJ Jones rule comes into the CBA. So I looked at it today, and any player who's gotten a paycheck for 3 years from the NFL is no longer subject to the minimum salary rules in the Canadian Football League. So pretend you draft Curtis Rourke, 7th round pick of the 49ers. If he's in the NFL ecosystem for 3 years, practice roster, game roster, whatever, and then he decides somehow that he's coming up to the CFL, is Curtis Rourke coming for what will be $90,000, the minimum salary at that time?
Right.
No chance.
Right.
To me, no chance that a guy like Curtis Rourke, I don't know Curtis Rourke from a hole in the ground. He's not playing for no $90,000, right? He's going to want
his brother's money.
Yeah, he's going to want Trey Ford's current salary adjusted for inflation, $400,000. So now you're paying. Would the Bombers have paid Terry Wilson $400,000 last year? No. Yeah. I love Terry Wilson. I hope he makes $400,000 a year. That'd be awesome. No chance you would do that, right? Just because it's a salary cap sport.
Right.
And we have no idea what Curtis Rourke would be in the Canadian Football League. So the TJ Jones rule is going to make me even more reserved in picking Curtis Rourke because when he actually does come, I might have to pay him through the nose.
Yep.
Oh, I want what my brother makes. $600,000, and I don't know how good you are in our game.
Yep.
Can't do it. I can't do it. So I probably would not draft Curtis Rourke. And then there's the question of Curtis Rourke's a 7th round pick in the NFL. There are a lot of quarterbacks in this league who were not picked in the NFL draft at all, so we get an assessment of their skill as outsiders. For Taylor Elgersma, is he good because he was the best Canadian quarterback in U Sports last year, or is he a good quarterback? And I honestly don't know the answer to that. Kyle Walters, a few offices over, absolutely does know the answer to that. But I have reservations of, is Taylor Elgersma better than the American kid from Peru State who I could get to come up and play for a minimum salary?
Peru State, that's a good hauler.
Right?
Yeah.
Devin Adams, shout out.
Yeah.
I just don't know the answer to that, so these guys will. But an interesting thing with mock drafts is the one they get, the pick the Bombers get because they played Canadians for 11,000 snaps last year. Some people use that as kind of a throwaway pick. Oh, you might as well take a shot. It's a free one. If I found $20 on the street, like it's $20 still. That's $20 in my pocket. That's the 19th.
The pick's too high. The pick's too high for it to be considered a throwaway. That's a good player you're getting there, in my opinion. I'm with you on that.
Would you have Gabe Wallace or take a shot on a guy who's committed, or Io Maynor?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not taking Io Maynor at 19, even though he might be unbelievable in our game.
Right. Last year, the Bombers did take a flyer on an NFL talent, and Giovanni Manu, who ended up being drafted by Detroit, but that was a 4th round pick. So it's a little less risky to take a middle of the road pick and on a flyer, you call it, and then hope that he comes to you down the road. So
I honestly, if a GM went into this and said, I'm not taking a quarterback, I'm not taking one of these two guys, I would totally get it. Right. Because there's just, it's trouble. But yeah, I was happy to go. The TJ Jones rule.
I like that
comes
you dug that
back
up.
into why I would not take Curtis Rourke.
Yeah. And to your
before
point,
the 8th.
before we went on air, just to wrap this up on the quarterback thing, if you have a Canadian quarterback and he doesn't start, it doesn't help you necessarily at all on the ratio.
Yeah, exactly. It counts toward your. We need. You can only have so many Americans and so many globals on your 44-man game day 45-man game day roster. But if that guy, if he's not a starter, he doesn't count toward.
And then
he counts like Shane Gauthier or Tanner Cadwallader counts. So you're now don't have a special teamer unless that guy's somehow playing special teams.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Well, that's not a real benefit. It's nice that Nathan Rourke and Trey Ford count towards the 7+ starting Canadians for BC and Edmonton, as it should be, and they aren't just non-counted period like they used to be. That's good.
Yeah.
But there's not a real plus to having. There's no incentive or lack of disincentive to have them as a backup.
Yeah, I just love that we're talking about Canadian quarterbacks and that there are factors
awesome.
in all this. Well, listen, man, this has flown by. I've got to get a couple plugs in here, right? We are not on this show, but down the road, we have a grand prize, right, for Grey Cup tickets.
Yeah, we got a few things to get through.
Yeah.
Still. We
Josh,
have time. We're coming up on an hour here pretty shortly, but we still got a ton of people hanging out. Lots of great stuff from you guys.
Io Manor.
Yeah, right.
Manor.
So let's we got a jersey to give away today. So
Okay.
we got to do that still.
Sorry.
So no, it's all good, but. Let's give this jersey away. So the jersey we're giving away is not our first pick of the draft. We don't have that inside knowledge. They don't trust us with that. But we are giving away a Kevin Sklercius jersey.
There you go.
To a lucky fan. Little change. Oh, am I? What's off?
Okay.
Oh, we're good?
We're giving away a Clercius? Is that
Clercius
right?
jersey.
Love
Kevin
it. Love
Clercius. Yes. Slight change to the way that we are doing the giveaway this year. So we have a different system. There will be, but last year we would get a name in chat. We would pick a random winner. We've done away with that. We have a better system in place this year. There will be a link posted in the chat momentarily, and you need to go to that link. And by signing up with your email, is that right, Sam? You get entered to win the Clercius jersey, and you can get a bonus entry if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. So 1 entry for signing up with your email, 2 entries for subscribing to the YouTube channel, and we won't pick the winner live on air. You'll be contacted within a few days with the new system. That's just how it works with the official giveaways. So yeah, there's a link in chat now for everyone to go there. It's pinned. It's the pinned comment in the chat, the giant box at the top there. Go to that link, sign up with your email. You're entered to win a Kevin's Clercius jersey. 2nd entry for subscribing to the YouTube channel. And then, Ed was saying we have a grand prize this year. So, Ed, I'll let you tell everyone a little bit about what the grand prize will be.
2 tickets to the Grey Cup. How about that?
That's pretty awesome.
At Princess Auto Stadium, just out down the hall here in November.
There's a lot of people that don't know that the Grey Cup is here. There's still a lot of people. I'm sure they're not the people that are in the YouTube show right now, but a lot of people. So we got to do a better job of that
this
ourselves.
just in. The Grey Cup is here in Winnipeg this year. And, that's a massive potential. That's a prize, man. That is a good prize for somebody. 2 tickets to the Grey Cup. I know that my sons are already all over me. How can we get tickets? They want to go. So people are planning ahead already. And it's pretty special. Winnipeg's had the Grey Cup in 91, 1998, 2006, and 2015. And I think every one of those was a pretty good party. It's not just about Grey Cup Sunday. But to be in the building, Derek, you can speak of this, when a team wins a championship, whether it's the Bombers, that'd be the ideal scenario or not, it's a pretty special deal when you cover this league and you follow this league. To be there to see a team win a championship live, amazing.
If Nelly Furtado was here for this Grey Cup as well, I'm going to lose it.
She was the half. You know who the Grey Cup halftime act was in 1991? The first one, Luba.
Get out of here.
And Burton Cummings. So
wow.
There you go.
That's very good.
That's a little bit of a time capsule for you.
Wow.
Anyway, I think we're done. Hey, Josh?
Well, we got a little bit of time left.
Okay.
We also have questions. We want to take fan questions
Let's do it.
as well.
Let's keep rolling then.
So, that link is in the chat. Go to that link. Sign up with your email. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. get as many chances to win that jersey as you can. Kevin Sclercius, draft pick last year, right? We
pick
talked
by the
about that a little
Bombers,
bit.
yeah.
Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, he's Mr. Perfect. Started a lot of games. He's
So
really
do we want to touch on the combine a little bit? We don't have a ton of time. I do want to take fan questions.
Sure.
Do we want to touch on the combine a little bit and then go to fan questions, or do we want to just skip that?
Let's go right to fan questions.
If you're looking at combine data, the track was very fast. There were at least 5 players whose short shuttle was faster than Michael Chris Ikes the year before, and everybody the year before that, and like Tyrell Ford. So times of the combine this year were, I don't know about those 100%, but there's some athletes. Anyways,
okay, let's get to some fan questions. So again, if you guys have questions, more questions, there are some, but if you have more, drop them in the chat as we kind of close out the show here. A lot of comments about the Canadian quarterback thing. I'm glad we went into depth on that. There's a lot of people that had a lot of questions about that. So that was awesome. But another question about the quarterback room as a whole. The question is, who do we think is going to emerge as the true backup to Zach?
Well, that's a great question because you've got Zach, Terry Wilson, who was basically number 2 at the end of last year, Jake Dolegala, who they picked up after Chris Strevler got hurt. Chris Strevler has been training like crazy, re-signed, he's back. And then Shea Patterson in free agency, that's an interesting one too because he started a pile of games, 6 games I think last year, 8 games for the Rough Riders when Trevor Harris got hurt, beat the Bombers in one of those starts in July, so he's an intriguing one too. If I was to handicap it, you'd like to give the guys that were in the building the benefit of the doubt from last year, but new offensive coordinator changes things too, right? It's not Buck Pierce anymore, it's Jason Hogan, as you said earlier, DT. I'm not going to handicap it, but I think any one of those guys is in the fight for number 2. That used to be that you'd have a clear-cut number 2 and then a prospect at 3.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the Bombers have that prospect. They got a bunch of guys fighting for 2.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the Strevolution, if he's healthy, to me is the short yardage quarterback. That's just to me. I just think that's the way. Shea Patterson can do that. Jake Dolegala to a lesser extent, but to me it's Zach and Strev plus 1. So 3 guys will.
That's
fight.
a good point.
To me, I got a lot of rave reviews from Saskatchewan folks about Shea Patterson's camp last year, but then he's available to the Bombers. So I wonder what they saw in camp, and will we see it in camp this year?
And they had a chance to get Jake Mayer in free agency, and so I think that made – and they went and got
Tommy Stevens
too.
to be
so they
their
took
short yardage.
2 Calgary guys, and that made Shea Patterson available.
Shea could be number 2.
Yeah.
Everything is who can get you out of a game, right? If the Bombers don't, I go with this for probably every team that's not Edmonton this year. If you don't have your starter, it's just over. You're done. Like if BC doesn't have Nathan Rourke, I apologize. Your season's done. Like it's Jeremiah Masoli, but your season's done. So if I love Zach Collaros like I love a cold beer on a hot Christmas morning. So if the Bombers don't have Zach Collaros, Homer Simpson, if the Bombers don't have Zach Collaros, to me, it's just I'm going to be in the booth going, this is over.
Yeah.
The chance of winning the Grey Cup is over because I just think the world of Zach and nobody else to me is Zach.
Yeah.
So who can get you out of a game?
Well, Chris
in that
Streller won a start last year.
He
so,
did?
Yeah, it's to me that's one of the more compelling storylines heading into camp.
Which of those 3 guys wins the number 2 spot?
Right.
To me? Yeah,
that's a great question.
Great question. Next question. I love this one too. Question for DT, but Ed, feel free to chime in. Nothing against that. Do you project anyone to have a breakout year this season? Who do you think is going to have a breakout season?
That's a good question. Gosh, I would want to. I want a full season of Cam Lawson. So bad.
That's a good pull.
Interception he had an interception in 2023. Like, oh, well, okay, he's got hands too.
Yep.
A breakout year. Michael Chris Ike is such an athlete. I would love to see him be able to make an impact. Watch Dylan Mitchell. There's a guy who can do. Dylan Mitchell, it won't be a true breakout because I think the league knows what Dylan Mitchell can do, and the Bombers have paid him like, okay, he's a player. Dylan Mitchell's a player.
That is a great pull, too. And I forgot. I was just focused on Canadians because thinking about the draft. But Dylan Mitchell, I think that's a steal for the Bombers to get him before free agency even starts. Because
Kenny Lawler's gone. But
Yeah.
when I saw and I love Kenny Lawler. I love Kenny Lawler. When I saw they'd gotten Dylan Mitchell, I went, okay, that can fill in a bunch. He's going to be that ex-receiver. Late in the season in Edmonton, he took over some of the return duties. I went, oh, okay, well,
he's
there's an
just
extra
so
layer
smooth.
as well.
So smooth as a receiver. Yeah.
He toasted Winston Rose on a double move in 2022
Yeah.
that I called in
Yes.
the pregame show. I'm like, oh, yeah, Dylan Mitchell. I believe you will very much enjoy Dylan Mitchell.
Next question. This one is a little bit more specifically for DT. What is the food competition with DB this year? Time to face off with the Walby Burger.
I'm in favor of all of this.
If you're doing the Walby Burger, we're getting cameras on that, okay? Because
100%.
I think
See, I don't know too much about because like I'm here
the size of this table.
Oh heavens, the Murgatroyd. I'm here 3.5 hours before the game, right? So I don't get a sense of the day. I learned afterward there was a day where it was like a 200-gram bag of Old Dutch Arribas with a taco inside. And I went,
Taco in a bag.
how am I not? That was made. Patty made that specifically with me in mind. I hope, because that is my food right there. That would be amazing.
Okay.
So I would be in favor of that. But the Bombers are so nice to drop off many hot dogs to us in the pregame show. That I've gone into games 5 hot dogs deep.
He brings
and I
his
was
own
unaffected.
condiments. This is
Dry dogs?
We get
Come
the
on,
free
man.
hot dogs in the pregame show. All of a sudden, Derek gets his backpack out. Comes the ketchup, mustard, and relish right out of his backpack.
Someday I'll post it. Doug and I post a game in Calgary in 23, or was it 24? Anyway, it was after a game in Calgary. I'd never done an eating challenge in my lifetime, and I thought, well, I'm too old for this. But at the time I was like, I'm almost 50. I gotta try it. It was a burger the size of a toilet seat from a restaurant in Calgary. I came nowhere close to being able to finish. There's some pulled pork on it. There was 3 pounds of pulled pork on this. Some pulled pork hamburger. Like, no chance. So I would absolutely do some work on a Walby burger, but yeah, if Doug wanted to, he could take me. But
I don't doubt it.
I gotta not work and come to one of these games and just sit there. Eat these foodstuffs and embarrass my wife. It'd be amazing.
Next one. We talked a little bit about this, but I think some people might have missed it. This person says, I hear there's lots of good D-line depth in this year's draft. Do you think the Bombers might target a D-lineman in the first round?
Well, we did talk about that earlier. The draft is really deep at D-line and DB. That's the consensus from people that really study these things. But as DT and I were pointing out, the Bombers are that's a spot the Bombers are stacked
name them
at.
off again in case they're just tuning in.
Jake Thomas, Cam Lawson, Tanner Schmeckel, Colin Cornelson, Kyle Sampson, Brock Gowanlock.
Yeah. Jamal Woods was a stud
I just don't
at the other tackle.
And they went
as
and
the
got
American.
James Fodders in free agency. You've got Willie Jefferson. I'm not sure that's an area that they target. Now, to what you said earlier, if a guy that you rank 1 or 2 best player in the draft is still sitting there at 6, yeah, maybe you grab him and then worry about the rest afterwards because it's the best player available kind of concept.
Yeah, as I go back, like I'm in love with the James Fodders pickup, knowing what he has done to the Bombers in this stadium as he ran through Jamarcus Hardrick's chest a couple times in 2023. And, okay, well that's really nice. Jamal Woods, as the season went along, that guy is he's
there's a guy
really
for the
good.
breakout player of the year kind of question.
I wish I'd thought of that. He is really good, Jamal Woods. So if you could add another guy, great. I would want incredible value if I'm going to go D-line in round number 1. I would want Kyle and Mike and Jordan to think this is the best player in the draft by a fair margin.
Right.
We have someone else in chat talking about Manitoba Bison Jackson Tuchinski. So maybe a word from each of you on his ability as a toolbox player, as he was taking reps at receiver at the Combine, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe just a word from both of you on what you think about Tuchinski.
Well, I'm going to be completely upfront here. I've got a real bias for Jackson Tuchinski. I coached him in basketball for 5-6 years within the Junior Bison's program. He's an exceptional man now. I think he's got character. It just oozes character. We see what he does with the Bisons. He was a Canada West Player of the Year. it says something about his athletic ability that we know what he does as a quarterback, that they say, hey, you're 6'4", you run well, you're tough as hell, want to take some reps at receiver. Not only does he do that, he does his homework as he always did, even when I was coaching him in basketball. He phones up, or he reaches out to Brad Sinopoli and says, you switch from quarterback to receiver, give me some tips. And Sinopoli, to his credit, one of the great Canadian receivers in this game, helped the guy out. And Jackson had a pretty good combine too. So he's an interesting guy because he could run easily right away, run your short yardage as a quarterback in this league right now because he's tough as hell. And then so what do you draft him as? A quarterback, a receiver? He's an athlete. And so I could see him getting picked as an athlete somewhere in this draft. And I'm sure he's crushed every interview he's been in.
I have to go back and actually I have that sheet in front of me. He ran a 4.7 540. I just had to Google up to find out exactly where that was, which is not the fastest time there ever was.
Right. I don't think he's not supposed to be a burner. He's going to be a slot receiver, and he's going to block. He'll be tough if he makes it as a receiver. He'll.
I wished I hoped I only had up at 21. So I'm curious about. There's quarterback athleticism, then there's receiver athleticism when now you're running against you're competing with guys like Nick Dembski. Okay, he's not as big as a Javon Catoy in BC because that guy is the size
monster.
of two houses.
Yep.
And Dembski is an incredible athlete at that third field position to the field. So, yeah, how does he? I presume Sinopoli wasn't a burner either.
Nope. Jason
I would love to
Claremont
see
wasn't
somebody
a burner.
give
Yep.
him a shot
Yep.
and then see. I asked Jackson at the Combine, well, what happens now? You have a fifth year with the Bisons. Will it be as a quarterback or a receiver? And he said, well, whatever Coach Pierre wants me to be. He probably wants you to be a quarterback because you're really good at that at the youth sports level.
Yep.
But I just don't know if we're not used to seeing it as much these days, right? It used to be Chris Hardy, okay, now you're the safety for the Argos. And Sinopoli, okay, well, quarterback a little bit, but how about you become a receiver?
And he made the switch.
It's unusual.
After he had already made Calgary as a quarterback, so
Yep.
he made the switch as a pro already. Jackson's got a little bit of a jump on that if he can make it to the next level.
And presumably if he were to be a full-time receiver, maybe train for speed a little more. Body type I might want to change this a little bit to be whatever, leaner or thicker, whatever the coach wants me to be. So he's an athlete and he's a good guy and he's been in 2 pro camps with the Bombers.
There's something to like there. There's something to work with there. Let's put it that way.
If he ends up in the Bombers with in the 6th round or the 7th round or the 8th round or the 5th round, not the least bit surprised because they would have real insight that no other team would.
Exactly.
And then we'll just end off with this last one because I don't think we touched on it too much. This is more of a training camp, less of a draft thing. But a word on the return game, kick and punt return game.
So good.
So we had a note
Rich.
about.
I'll let you. I think I'll just start with this and then I'll let you riff on it, DT. I think Peyton Logan.
That was the name that was called out in the
We
chat.
might be saying by August, even before that he's one of the most impactful free agent signings in the league.
Yeah.
Because of what he's going to get a ton of work as a returner, but he's also an excellent running back. And, you don't want to take snaps away from Brady Oliveira, but this guy can play.
But, hey, Peyton Logan's in there at receiver, and now he runs those jet sweeps that they gave to Janarian Grant 2 years ago. Right? Last year, it was scratch and claw, and who's it going to be? And it's Chris Smith, and it's Cody Case, and
Lucky
can we
Whitehead.
have Lucky Whitehead? Yeah. Oh, it's Lucky Whitehead. Darn,
Myron
it's Lucky
Mitchell.
Whitehead. Myron Mitchell for a bit. This year, Logan, returner. Dylan Mitchell, significant return experience. Gavin Cobb, some returning experience. That's not even counting other people who will come to camp,
right?
Defensive backs or receivers who will come to camp and have also had returning experience along the way. You go, right off the bat, they are set with Peyton Logan. If Peyton Logan gets hurt, Dylan Mitchell is here. And if Dylan Mitchell gets hurt, well, okay, that's a real lot of bad luck. Gavin Cobb, can you get us out of this game? We're good. They're in a fantastic spot with returners. Now, can they put it all together? Because as you mentioned the Nick Hallett touchdown, they had 2 special teams touchdowns last year by the cover team, not by the return team.
Michael Ayers had the other one.
Which is so weird that they were 2 by the cover team, not the return team. And we're all Bomber fans. We're all friends here. We all saw what Janarian Grant did for the Argos.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but the Bombers are in a real good spot right now.
And in our league, returners are probably going to get 100 touches, right? That's a lot of work when you combine kickoff returns and punt returns. That's a lot of work during the season. So it's not something you just throw away. You got to have somebody back there that can play.
Yeah, and Peyton gives you. They really tried. Buck Pierce really tried to get Janarian Grant to be part of the offense. He was going to be a starting receiver in 22, but then camp didn't go the way that they want. Peyton Logan can be a part of the offense and be the returner, so it's a real added dimension for Jason Hogan to work with. That's I love that acquisition.
Yeah. Hey,
we love all these Calgary guys going somewhere else, and yet they were terrible. Amazing.
Okay, so this is going to be our last question.
Okay.
Before we get to it, I will remind everyone that the link for the jersey giveaway is still in the chat.
Beautiful.
So if you haven't jumped in there, register with your email, subscribe to the YouTube channel. 2 chances to win a Kevin's Clarcius jersey. And again, at some point later this year, we're going to be giving away some Grey Cup tickets. So come back to the Huddle once it starts regularly, Tuesdays at 3 p.m. And our last question today is about that starting safety spot. With Brandon Alexander gone, what is it looking like?
We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. It looks a little bit different because of the way Jordan Younger plays defense. I just don't think that we can say safety's going to be in the middle of the defense and going to take all those snaps. There's going to be 2 guys back there. There's going to be 3 guys back there. There's going to be, as you said, linebackers dropping, D tackles dropping back into coverage.
Yeah.
Jordan Younger's defense is so complicated and versatile that I don't think that you can say X replaces Brandon Alexander. If anything, it might be Michael Griffin. It might be Jamal Parker.
Yep.
Who gets a look there.
One of those guys will be the guy on the first Sunday of camp.
Yes.
To me, it's going to be one of those 2 guys.
Right.
Then they have other options, right? They could make that a Canadian spot if they wanted to. But Griffin got so much action as the 7th defensive back last season that my guess, and he would be like, no joke, if you go back and watch, if Waiters is with us, Waiters27 on YouTube, if you go back and watch some of his stuff, there's Brandon Alexander as the safety, and you're like, why do the Bombers only have 11 guys on defense? Well, it's because Michael Griffin is playing behind him. You go, okay, well, I don't know how defense works exactly. Doug Brown could explain it much better, but I don't have any – I fully believe Michael Griffin could be the safety in this defense.
Absolutely.
In a heartbeat.
Even Enoch Makonzo, who we mentioned earlier, or Reddick Cramdy, as you suggested. So
and then Jamal Parker can be the
Right.
7th. Makonzo, Nick Hallett can be the 8th, whatever it's going to be. Makonzo could be the 8th.
Yeah.
He's Canadian. So, yeah, I think if I had to guess, it's not May 11th, it's August 28th. If I had to guess, Michael Griffin is there the first Sunday. But Jamal Parker, injured in camp last year, is a good player.
Yeah.
So if it's Jamal Parker, I'm not surprised. What if it's Dietrich Nichols, who played a little bit of dabbled a little bit of safety at times last year? But I would bet it's Michael Griffin the 2nd.
Right. Beautiful. Okay. Awesome questions from people. Look, I said about a half an hour ago we were going to wrap it up, but the questions were so good we had to keep riffing on them. I appreciate everybody for joining us. Appreciate all the guys that help on this every week. Don't forget to like and subscribe the Blue Bombers YouTube channel every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Going forward, we hope to do one almost every week going forward, right to Grey Cup week, maybe not during bye weeks. We'll have players, coaches, DT on again. We'll get him the 5-time guest host jacket for when he does come on again. Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for doing this. And thanks to all the Bomber fans who have joined us. And don't forget to join us next week, too, at 3 o'clock.